more snow than the north. That's odd.
I
We
know.
did. I'm down here. I got good shoveling arms.
I had a foot of
Busy.
snow.
I hope we don't get it Saturday again, Friday night, Saturday.
Yeah, they're saying not too much though. They're saying we're getting it, but not too much.
I'm ready for spring.
Yeah.
You
Right.
didn't build a snowman yet. Come on.
That's why you moved to the beach, right?
I do not like winter. Uh-uh.
So just a general question, um, with all this craziness in Washington about immigration, how is that going to impact what you're doing?
It impacts us because our community, we have immigrant families represented in our community. Um, I mean, so we are having to take a stance and sort of to lead in sort of putting some boundaries in place as far as like in our schools and things like that. Um, like what ICE can and cannot do as far as coming into schools and things like that. But it definitely does create this wave of fear, Bill. We went through this before in 2017. And, we're hopeful that these are just, once again, threats that he doesn't carry through. But yeah, it's a concern in any immigrant, community. We have a large Haitian population down in Sussex County as well as Hispanic population. Um, I just think that as as citizens of our country, we have to realize that immigrants are the backbone of our labor force. So we'd be shooting ourselves in the foot if we take these drastic steps. And especially, there's lots of like the poultry industry. That's what attracts a lot of the Hispanic population into Sussex County. So we're having to just sort of be advocates on that subject, Bill. I mean, we definitely have to navigate that carefully. But as far as our schools concerned, it's not the majority of our population that we serve, but we definitely have families that are impacted.
Hmm. Well, I guess we're all going to have to just wait and see what happens. It really is hard to tell.
Yeah.
Indeed. A lot of the advocacy groups down here are running these Know Your Rights workshops to prepare citizens, to tell citizens to be prepared and to make a plan should they be deported, power of attorney, um, and and such. So it's very you know very sad to know that a family is kind of going through that fear and having to plan for those possibilities.
I remember it was quite a while ago that John Paderakis, H&S Bakeries, which is a big business in Baltimore, and 60% of the McDonald buns in America are baked by H&S. And he was telling how ICE raided their bakery and was taking away all these people. And then people have been working for him for 25 years and paying taxes and had families. And it's just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know. I guess we'll see. All right. Well, with that, thank you so much. And I think we have a quorum here. Happy New Year, everybody. I see Daniel and Brighton. He's the only one that I can reliably email at 2 in the morning.
And he responds immediately.
And he responds immediately. So we're birds of a feather, I guess you say, or whatever.
Yeah, it's nice to have someone to talk to those hours
When
sometimes
you can't
when I
Right.
sleep.
want to talk.
So let's see. Carla, do you want to do the introductions, or how do you want to do it, or Daniel, or?
I can do a quick introduction. So we've been working with Dan, who will tell you he's a managing member of a small OZ equity firm in Delaware. So we first got connected with Dan maybe 6 or 9 months ago. His group is working on developing a historic ice house in Georgetown, Delaware, which is in Sussex County, the southernmost county of Delaware's three. And along the way, he got connected with the team at Aspira Academy, Margie, Wanda, and Greg are all here from the academy, and it's a bilingual charter school that currently has 2 locations in the Wilmington area in the northernmost county of Delaware, and they were already looking to expand to the south of the state, and so it was really kind of a perfect match and a great use of this really cool building. So usually when we pitch the project to new markets, potentials, Dan starts with this. Wait, oh no, actually, it's Margie and Wanda that start with this introduction, and then Dan goes into some of the details of the school. So we can do some of the details of the project if we want to do it like that today. I think that's great. But the academy has a really amazing story of impact, and the community in Georgetown seems really, really excited about this opportunity. And we're really excited and honored to be a part of the team putting the financing together and making it all work.
Yeah, just from a general perspective, why don't I just say, number one, we do these coffee clatches once a month. We started during the pandemic. We were an essential business in construction, so we never went fully remote. But a lot of people were working from home in different places, and we have offices in different places. And we were doing it weekly, I think, when we started, just so people had a sense of what was going on and what everybody was doing. And when the pandemic wound down and everybody was basically back at work, we decided, let's keep this going on a monthly basis. It gives us a chance to catch up with people we might not have seen, but also, as with today, to have guests, because what keeps us going and gives me the energy to be up at 2 a.m. doing email is the work we do is really important. I feel so fortunate at Cross Street that we're in our own little tiny way working with amazing people like you, Aspira and Daniel, to do something that makes a difference. And in our short lives, that's important. And we're, to be able to, for all the headaches and heartaches, and Daniel's been going through the ridiculous complexities of this tax credit financing and this and that, and every time you turn around, there's another pothole thrown at you. But what keeps us going is the substance, the goodness of what the people we work with, the people we support are doing in our communities, with our families, and in our world. So that is why we're here. So let's hear it. Dan, you want to introduce the team?
Okay, thank you, Bill. I appreciate that. Can everybody hear me okay? Is my audio on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, first, I want to say that we enjoy working with Cross Street. And we first met Bill and some of his team, Margaret and others, down at the Phillips packing plant over a year ago, a year and a half probably ago now. When we first started working on this project in Georgetown, I had seen some information about the packing plant. And I said, that looks very similar to what we're trying to do. Big, old industrial type structure being historically rehabbed using new market tax credits and historic tax credits. So I contacted Bill and said we would like to tour. And he came down with Margaret and some others all the way from Baltimore down to Southern Maryland and spent the day with us. And we were very impressed by what he had done. We stayed in contact. And when I began to realize we really needed some professional help, that's had a large degree of why I turned to Cross Street is the generosity that Bill and his team had given to us by meeting with us so early and, just taking the time out to show us what they've done. So thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. And I want to make it clear, Bill said I was the managing member of a small equity firm. That's sort of not quite really. I am not a equity firm expert by any means. My professional career has been 35 years of doing project finance in developing countries. And in recent years, I've been trying to use some of that project management skills locally. I've done a half dozen historic restoration projects in my hometown, Milford, Delaware, which is just north of Georgetown. And when the Opportunity Zone program first came out, I was very interested in it, kept my eye on it. And there was a particular project here in Milford that I was interested in doing that was bigger than anything I had done before. And so I organized a small group, just really 4 couples here locally in Delaware. We have a self-managed Opportunity Zone fund set up, one that we set up ourselves with legal and tax advice. But it's not one of the big ones. It's not one of the big multi-asset firms with institutional investor financing. It's a small one. And I would say that we are a small group that are trying to take advantage of the Opportunity Zone tax breaks. We all had capital gains that we invested. But at the same time, we want to do something for our communities because we are local. We're from this area. And we came across the ice house, decided to take that on. It really stretched to do that. The project in Milford is moving forward slowly at this point. We're still in the planning stage for the Georgetown project, but it's been quite an experience. Delaware has been really slow in getting into Opportunity Zone investing. There are only a couple of funds that are active in Delaware at all. All the others, of course, are in Wilmington. And so what we're doing is really, in my view, what Opportunity Zones should be doing. Funds should be doing local projects by local people investing wherever they can. One of the problems with that is you find out that it's very hard to get advice for a small firm, for a small project that you can afford to pay. And that's been a struggle. So you have to do a lot of study yourself to try to know what to do. And I've been really struggling with making sure I'm following all the regulations for Opportunity Zones and so forth. Fortunately, I know the historic tax credit process very well, and so that's not a problem for us. But I think what we should do today is really hear about why we're doing this, and that's the school. That's the Aspira Academy. I was delighted when Aspira came down to Georgetown and thought this building would meet their needs for a kindergarten through 5th grade dual language charter school. And for us as a property developer, we'll have one tenant. We'll have a long-term lease arrangement. The tenant will eventually buy the building. So it's a good arrangement for us as well. But let me turn over to Margie, because the story of her journey, how she started and how she started the school, is one you should hear. So Margie, why don't you tell us the story starting in New York City?
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share the presentation. Hold on. Okay. Make sure we get into slide mode. Okay. So thank you, Dan and Bill and Carla and the entire Cross Street of family. I think, Bill, when you mentioned that, the work that you do is really important, that has substance and goodness, I think this is why this is turning out to be such a good relationship between Dan and his group and Cross Street and Aspira, because I think we all share that common the common purpose in life, which is to do good. So Aspira, our mission is not just to teach children 2 languages. It's the impact of building communities through communication, right? So you can only build relationships with people if you can communicate with them. We got to be able to talk to each other in order to get to know each other. So the impact that we've had as the first dual language charter school in our state has really been building a stronger community. And that's really what has been driving us all these years. And so this is our mission, our vision, our equity statement. And really what we teach is not just teaching students about content and giving them information, but we also build character. We've always believed since day one that character development had to be a component of our curriculum, and that we want our students, or aspirantes, as we call them, to go out into the world and do great things, but also then give back to their communities and continue to build that pipeline. So the history of Aspira. So Aspira is actually a national organization. It's been around for over 60 years. It was started by a teacher from Puerto Rico. Her name was Dr. Antonia Pantoja. And when she migrated from the island to New York City, like many Puerto Ricans did in the 50s and 60s, including my parents, she came with a lot of hope, but also the vision that Puerto Ricans had coming from the island, never having been in the United States, was, based on what they saw on TV and movies. It wasn't the reality. And what happened when that large migration of Puerto Ricans came into the city, they were met with a lot of discrimination, racism, and a lot of the youth started to lose hope and started dropping out of school. They did not see any reason to stay in school. And Dr. Antonia Pantoja quickly, yes? Oh, I'm sorry. So she quickly organized other educators to create what was known as Aspira. Aspira means to aspire in Spanish. And the whole purpose was to give students hope again. The way she did that is by creating these clubs in the high schools throughout New York City. And these clubs were a way for students to come together, feel the sense of belonging, feel a sense of community. And then when she had them, also build their leadership skills. Because what she quickly saw is that the reason kids were dropping out of school, the gangs were very prevalent at that point. So she was looking at what is it the gangs are offering that is, why are they gravitating towards that? And the gangs were offering that sense of belonging and that sense of pride. And so she said, well, that's what we're going to do in Aspira. We're going to do it in a positive way, though. So she created the clubs, and the clubs provided opportunities for students to make a plan, not only to finish high school, but to go on to college. And there was one young man by the name of Gus, who was one of those students in New York City at the time, became an aspirante, got to benefit from the Aspira clubs. And he, fast forward in his life, he goes on to go to college, medical school, becomes a pediatrician, and he moves to Delaware with his family. So we really credit Dr. Gus Rivera, for bringing the Aspira vision to Delaware. And he started very much like Dr. Antonia Pantoja. We started with clubs. My sister Wanda, who's on this call, Wanda was part of the initial Aspira group that started at the grassroots level, reaching out to the different school districts in our state, asking to create and establish these Aspira clubs in those schools. And we still have some of those clubs operating now. And then when the law changed in our state and in our country about charter schools, and that was in the late 90s, Gus came to us and started talking about, we need to think about maybe opening up a school. And I always share that I thought it was a crazy idea. The idea of opening up a school just seems so huge of a project. But he inspired us to consider that, because what we were seeing in our state and throughout the country is that students that come into our school system that don't speak English, unfortunately, they're treated as a problem that needs to be solved. Schools struggle with how to support them. If you've ever tried to learn a second language, you don't do it through osmosis. It has to be a very deliberate process to help the person maintain and develop their first language while they're acquiring the second language. And unfortunately, for too long in our school systems, we've just thrown kids into a classroom and we just thought over time they would just get it. And unfortunately, some students would hit that wall, get frustrated, and start quitting school because they fell so far behind. So we felt that we needed to sort of show that there was a different model. There's a different way to approach this. That when we talk about 21st century skills and we focus on how to prepare our students for the world that's going to be waiting for them when they graduate, a lot of things change in our world, and technology, for one, changes overnight. But the one thing that doesn't change is communication. So we felt that we could show the rest of our state that if we focus on biliteracy, that would be really the key to strengthening our students and our graduates. So we started with the school, the K-8 school. We got a charter in 2009. We were able to open the school in 2011. It was delayed 1 year because of facilities. One of the biggest challenges charter schools have is securing facilities. But it ended up being a blessing because that year delay gave us an opportunity to find the property that we live in now, which was an old warehouse. It was the Happy Harry's warehouse, and it was not on the market prior to that year. What we've been able to do in the first 6 years is convert it into a beautiful school. So that's the picture you're seeing there. You'll see more pictures later, but we started with 300 students, about 303 students, kindergarten through fifth grade. And we then grew up to a K-8 school. That building now houses over 1,000 students, K-8. We also do have what we call the ECDC, the Early Childhood Development Center. So if you're an employee of our school, you can actually enroll your child in our ECDC from birth through pre-K. So we also have that housed in that building. And then our family started to really pressure us about expanding to a high school. We graduated 5 classes of eighth graders, and every year, the pressure just continued to mount, and the families continued to ask for us to consider expanding. And we finally were able to do it in 2020, the year of the pandemic. So, it's ironic because, when we opened our first school, that was the year that summer before our doors opened, our state encountered a hurricane or tornado, and an earthquake. An earthquake. So all 3 things. So it seems to be part of our DNA that we can overcome these big challenges. So the pandemic did not scare us. We opened our doors in the fall of 2020, and we've continued to grow the high school. We graduated our first class of 12th graders last spring. So we now have the 2 campuses. And here's a picture of them. So this one is the K-8 school. It's located on Ruth R. Drive in Newark. It's actually a business park. So it's actually the corner property of a business park. Across the street is UPS Customer Center. Next to us is DuPont. So, but they've been great neighbors to us. And then the high school was actually a former Gore building. That exchanged hands many times, but we were able to convert that into what you see now as the high school. So we have over 1,400 students that we serve. It is a larger, about 70% of our students are Hispanic, about 15% Black, African American, and the rest Caucasian. Our Asian population has always been less than 2%. So that's the demographics at this time. We have continued our low income population has continued to grow to the point where last December of 24, we were able to actually do free meals. So our schools now provide free breakfast, free lunch, and free after school meals to our students because our low income percentage had grown that much. Our special education population has grown over the years. Statewide, the average is about 12 to 15% of your school population being special education. Ours is about 17%. I think that one of the things families like is the culture that we've built in our school, and the fact that their students are getting that personal attention and support. And then we have a large English learner population. It's varied anywhere from 35% to 40%. So our strategic plan has been to establish this pathway to biliteracy to build stronger communities throughout the state of Delaware. Since day one, since we first had the idea of opening up the first school, we had talked about what it would look like after that first school. We always had our eyes on Sussex County because we knew of the growing population there. We felt that what we built in Newark could be replicated in the other counties in our state. And then, so as the leadership team and our board, our school board, we came together and we decided that, you know, there were certain considerations that we would have to take into account before we would venture into any type of expansion. And these are the things like sort of our checklist of the things that had to be checked off before we would proceed with any expansion. Obviously, it needed to align to our strategic vision. The benefits needed to outweigh the costs. It needed to complement the existing campuses, right? We didn't want to do anything that was going to be detrimental to what we've already built. The main and one of the on the financial side, the facility lease and purchase terms needed to be favorable because we needed to consider our operating budget, our debt structure, and our investor obligations. So that was going to be to us probably the biggest hurdle was finding a favorable lease situation. And then we needed to have the bandwidth to support the staffing and the leadership needs, which is something that we've continued to create sort of what we call grow our own talent internally and creating a pipeline for our team members to develop, to continue their education, get their degrees, and be prepared for those next steps in their career. So, you know, we do have the bandwidth to create, to have the expansion. And then long and behold, we kept saying, you know, opportunity came knocking and, you know, came in the form of Dan and his team. And we were approached by them about this ice house. And, you know, we were able to meet with them and we were excited about the opportunity. And as I shared with my board of directors and my school community, you know, I feel like it is an ideal partnership because Dan and his team are investors with business minds, but they have philanthropic hearts, and that really is the best combination. And so we were able to check off all the boxes, say yes to everything that we were considering in our expansion, and we were able to then move forward with this idea. And I believe, Dan, are you taking over at this point?
Well, I think thank you very much. That was a very good background on the project. I think now, if people have questions, I think that'd be the way to go.
Okay.
Just open up to any questions.
Well, I'll go through these couple of slides because I mean I love the before and after pictures, right? So this is the building. I'm sure you've seen it before. Definitely not that attractive at this point, but it's really about the potential that it provides. This is the history of the building. We found it so interesting when we took the first tour, the fact that this was the first building back in the early 1900s, and then they basically continued to expand and build the building around that. So that first little piece of the building still exists inside of the building, and you'll see that in later pictures. But this is what we anticipate would be the school and what would it look like. And then has a lot more character. Obviously, it's a historic building, so there are some limitations on how many windows we can have. I mean, we can open windows that were existing before, but we can't create new windows. And these are some just what it would look like inside. Very excited about the space, the warmth that it provides. We're able to fit in all of the different classes that we need. We would be starting with about 200 students. We would start K first and second the first year, and then continue to grow and add a grade each year, so that we'd eventually would go from 200 students K2 to 400 students K5. Really excited about the architect and the team that Dan and the investors have connected with. These are the images that they've provided. We went through them yesterday, as a matter of fact, to finalize the design. We had very little changes. This is that initial building, which I think has created such great character inside of the school. This is going to be a play area for the students inside. So I'll stop sharing at that point now. Okay. Thank you.
Fantastic. Love it, love it, love it. When can we start construction? Let's go.
So the last
Carla,
hurdle so last night we had the second public meeting. I just wanted to share that with you. We, because of the snow, none of it was in person, it was all virtual. Wanda was pounding the pavement and, making sure that the community knew about the meeting. And we had a great turnout. We had about 25 people, 28 people on the call last night, all positive comments. So at this point, with the first the meeting, the second public meeting, and people are free to also send written comments. It's all been positive. So at this point, we have not had any opposition to this project, which is really amazing. I'm meeting with the superintendent of the local school district next week because we want to be sure that we continue to have those positive relationships with the community. So the last hurdle is really next week on the 16th is the State Board of Education meeting. So that's when the Secretary of Education formally makes the recommendation to the State Board of Education to approve this application. And at this point, we have no reason to believe that there's going to be any opposition to that. There's going to probably be some questions from the state board, but the fact that we've already gone through all the other hurdles, it seems like right now it's just a formality. So we're anxiously waiting for the 16th so that we can officially say we're done. We finished that race. We're across that finish line, and then we move on.
Great. Margaret, questions? Carla, questions?
No, it was a great presentation, Margie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And it's a wonderful project. It's inspiring.
Thank you. We're inspired too. I mean, last night in the public meeting, I just had this big smile the whole time. It's just amazing to hear the community say how they've always wanted this. They're so happy that they're going to get it. And they understand the connection with building a stronger community. They want their community to be more cohesive. And they see the school as a catalyst to create that.
Cool. So, Carla, you must have some thoughts about how we're
Gotta put it all
moving along
together.
with this.
Yeah, good projects take time and have their challenges. But as you've heard today, just the everything behind this is so good and so important. We're gonna figure it all out. So we've been really hitting the pavement trying to find our new markets allocation for the project and also doing all the troubleshooting to really figure out what the perfect combination of financing, tax credits, philanthropy, and equity is. That's kind of the ongoing hurdle of planning all the different scenarios of what different financing tools are appropriate for the project. But Sam, Adam, and I went and visited the two schools that are currently open in Newark, Delaware. And it was pretty amazing. We do a lot of adaptive reuse projects, but the adaptive reuse of the warehouse was really uniquely inspiring. And it was the most sunny and beautiful school on the inside. But we were also, I think most importantly, super impressed by the principal and the teachers and everyone we met with. Margie has a really amazing team. So it's really easy to imagine a really successful school in Georgetown. So we're just taking the steps to figure out how to put the money together.
And I know Margaret and I are trying to find a date to come visit the schools. We're very excited about that. And one of the things we talk about as a company is trying to create more opportunities for our whole team to get out and see these projects and meet the project sponsors that are doing amazing things. So that remains an aspiration, is to get the whole gang out, and we'll all be aspired, if that's the right verb. On funding, with this crazy stuff going on in Washington, every once in a while you hear something that might percolate out as a positive, but this guy, the nominee to HUD, Turner, who's an old Ben Carson mentee, sounds like a big OZ advocate. And so I'm curious. We've been working with different folks in Congress on a tax bill to improve the federal historic credit, make it 1 year again instead of 5 years, which really is important. We're always looking to make the new market program better and more efficient and permanent. But the chance potentially of extending and expanding OZ to be more impactful is a possibility. So, there might be a little upside coming out of this mess in Washington around OZ. So we're watching that. I'm sure, Dan, you're watching that also.
Yes.
Any other questions from our team? I know a bunch have been working on the financing schedule. We got the contractor getting ready to gear it up to go. Design's moving. So all we need is some money. And we're ready to take off. So I know we've talked a little bit maybe about a phased start potentially. I know you're looking at CPACE. We're all eager to see how CPACE works in Delaware. We think it is potentially a great financing tool since you don't have to sit around, and there's so many of these new market projects that we've been involved in that had 7-year interest only loans, and then 7 years goes by quick. And all of a sudden you're looking at closing out your compliance period and you got this loan that has a balloon, and it may have originally closed when interest rates were more modest or 4 or 5% and more available, and now they're looking at refinancing in a terrible commercial real estate financing market. But PACE, we like because it's there for 20, 25 years, fixed interest rate, non-recurring, you just don't have to worry about it. So I'm glad, Daniel, that you're looking at that. And we have some lenders that are really seem to be interested. So we're eager to see if we can get this moving. Any other questions from the Aspira team of our team? We have our a good variety of folks from construction and property management and accounting and finance and development.
Well, Greg, I'm always proud to share that Greg is the first person I hired on my team. As the founder of the school, there was a period of time with just me, myself, and I. When I finally was able to hire somebody, I hired Greg. So he's my right hand. So I know he's been meeting with you on a regular basis. So he's all over the construction and the finance part of it. So if Greg doesn't have any questions, then I'm good. Yeah, Wanda's been the community engagement person, sort of the boots on the ground, making the connections. So,
And I'll just mention that we're part of a team that bought the GE campus in Fort Wayne, Indiana,
mhm.
1.5 million square feet. First phase was 700,000 square feet,
Wow.
300 million. And one of the coolest things in it is the AMP Lab. You can Google it. It's a experiential high school, STEM high school. That's for juniors and seniors, half day. It's a lab-based education program. There's 4 different labs. There's a maker lab. There's a creative digital arts lab. There's a AI lab. Can't remember what the 4th one is. And the kids come in for a half day and do their projects. And we're now trying to rally additional funding to double the size of AMP Lab because they have a big waiting list, so that they can add a capstone year for graduating seniors that would be paid internships, entrepreneurial opportunities, and so on. And interesting in that the politics of race in schools and public schools, originally AMP Lab was for the 5 Fort Wayne high schools. But the suburban schools were watching what was going on and say, holy smokes, this is really cool. And we'd love to have this for our students. So they interestingly have the suburban high schools now banging on the door saying, we want to send our kids to downtown Fort Wayne
That's
to this
awesome.
amazing school. So
Mhm.
it also is a charter school. And we'd love to look at how we might replicate that at some point. So,
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
yeah. Well, anyway, is there any, we're a little bit past our time here. Is there any other questions on our team? And if not, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Aspira team and Daniel. And I'll be talking to you at 2 in the morning, I'm sure, soon.
Wonderful.
And let's get this money together, get started.
We're eager to do that, and
Agreed.
we really enjoy working with you, Bill, and your team. It's been very enjoyable and extremely helpful. So thank you.
All right,
Mhm.
onward. Making the world a
Thank
better
you.
And wait,
place.
enough wait.
Adelante,
you,
as we say in
everyone.
Spanish. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.